Welcome to this English listening practice story. Today, you will hear a simple and easy story titled My Very First Trip to America. This story is designed for English beginners who want to improve their listening skills through natural, everyday English. As you listen, try to relax and enjoy the experience. Do not worry if you do not understand every single word. The more you listen, the more your English will improve. This story will help you learn new vocabulary, understand real-life conversations, and hear English in a smooth and friendly way. The journey begins from the airport, continues through the first days in America, and shows how traveling can help you grow in confidence and language skills. Take your time, listen carefully, and enjoy the adventure. Let's begin. I still remember the morning I decided to take my very first trip to America. The decision felt exciting, frightening, and unbelievable all at the same time. I had always dreamed of seeing the United States, but I never imagined that the moment would actually arrive so soon. When I woke up that day, the sun was shining brightly through my window, almost as if it was telling me, today is the beginning of something new. I packed my clothes slowly, making sure I didn't forget anything important. I checked my passport at least 5 times because I was so nervous about traveling. As I zipped my suitcase, I felt a little flutter in my stomach, part nervous, part excited. I told myself that this trip would teach me something new about the world, about other people, and even about myself. It was not just a vacation, it was a step into a bigger life, a larger dream, and a whole new chapter of my journey. The airport was the next big challenge. I had never been inside such a large place before. People were moving in every direction, some running, some walking quickly, and some standing quietly with worried faces, afraid they might miss their flights. The sound of rolling suitcases filled the air, mixing with announcements from large speakers that echoed across the hall. I held my ticket tightly in my hand and followed the signs carefully. Even though everything felt confusing, I tried to stay calm and focused. When I finally reached the check-in counter, the airline staff smiled at me and asked for my passport. Her smile made me feel a little more confident. She checked all my documents, printed my boarding pass, and wished me a safe trip. That small moment of kindness helped me relax. I took a deep breath and told myself, you can do this. Going through security was another new experience. I watched people place their bags inside big trays and then walk through a tall metal machine. I wasn't sure what to do, so I carefully copied the people ahead of me. I removed my shoes, placed my phone in the tray, and pushed my suitcase onto the moving belt. The security officer signaled for me to walk through the machine. My heart was beating fast, but everything went smoothly. After collecting my things, I felt proud of myself. I had successfully completed something that once felt scary. I realized that traveling, especially for the first time, comes with many small challenges. But each challenge, once passed, becomes a little victory that builds confidence and teaches courage. The waiting area near the gate was crowded with people from all around the world. I sat near a large window where I could see airplanes arriving and leaving. They looked so massive and powerful, yet they moved across the runway with surprising grace. I wondered what it would feel like to be inside such a giant machine, flying high above the clouds. As I waited, I listened to the conversations around me. Some people spoke English quickly, and I could only understand a few words. Others spoke languages I didn't recognize at all. But instead of feeling confused, I felt inspired. This was the beauty of traveling, meeting new cultures, new sounds, and new ways of speaking. I opened my small travel notebook and wrote a simple sentence. Learning begins the moment you step outside your comfort zone. When the time came to board the plane, I felt a wave of excitement rush through me. I walked through the long tunnel that connected the airport to the aircraft, and the moment I stepped inside, I was amazed. The seats were arranged neatly in long rows, and soft lights glowed above them. I found my seat near the window, which made me even happier because I wanted to see everything from above. A friendly flight attendant greeted me with a warm smile and helped me place my suitcase in the overhead compartment. I thanked her, sat down, and looked out the window. The world outside suddenly felt so big. I thought about the journey ahead. I was crossing an ocean, visiting a new country, and starting an adventure that I would remember for the rest of my life. As the plane prepared for takeoff, the engines became louder and the aircraft slowly moved onto the runway. My hands felt a little sweaty, but my heart was filled with excitement. When the plane finally lifted off the ground, I felt a gentle pull in my stomach. The city below became smaller and smaller until it looked like tiny dots from a map. I watched as we climbed higher into the sky, moving above the clouds. They looked like soft, white mountains stretching across the horizon. It felt magical. Even though I was far from home, I felt calm. I realized that sometimes the best way to grow is to let yourself fly, literally and symbolically. Traveling teaches bravery, and bravery teaches freedom. The flight was long, but it was also filled with many interesting moments. The flight attendant served food, snacks, and drinks. I practiced speaking English when I ordered my meal. I said slowly, "Can I have chicken, please?" And the attendant nodded kindly. I felt proud. I also watched a movie in English with subtitles to improve my listening. Whenever I heard words I recognized, I smiled. It made me feel like I was truly learning. I even talked to the person sitting next to me, a man traveling for business. He spoke clearly and I understood most of what he said. The conversation gave me confidence and reminded me that learning a language happens in real moments, not just in books. When the plane finally began its descent, I pressed my face gently against the window so I could see the ground below. America looked huge from the sky. Long roads, tall buildings, and wide rivers all stretching far into the distance. The closer we came to the ground, the more real everything felt. I told myself, this is no longer a dream. You are truly here. The airplane landed with a soft bump, and the passengers clapped quietly, celebrating the safe arrival. As we taxied toward the gate, my heart filled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. I wondered what the airport would look like, what people would sound like, and whether I would be able to communicate clearly. I reminded myself that this journey was about learning, exploring, and growing. So even if I made mistakes in English, it was all part of the experience. I took a deep breath and whispered, "Welcome to America," almost as if I was speaking to my future self who had been waiting for this day. When the airplane doors opened, a rush of cooler air greeted us. I followed the line of passengers into the airport, and immediately I was struck by how spacious everything looked. The ceilings were high, and the hallways were wide, filled with bright signs and screens. People moved in many directions, some pulling suitcases, others walking briskly to catch connecting flights. I tried to stay calm, even though everything felt new and slightly overwhelming. I followed the signs that said immigration and passport control. The words looked official, and my heart beat a little faster as I walked toward the officers. When it was my turn, the officer asked me simple questions in English: why I came, how long I would stay, and where I would live. I answered slowly but clearly, making sure my sentences were correct. When he finally stamped my passport, a warm feeling spread through my chest. I had officially entered the United States. I smiled to myself, knowing I had just completed one of the biggest steps of my journey. After immigration, I went to the baggage claim area to pick up my suitcase. The large machines turned slowly as bags appeared one by one. I watched carefully until I saw my familiar blue suitcase coming around the corner. I pulled it off the carousel with relief. Just as I closed the zipper, I heard someone behind me say, "Do you need help?" It was a young woman who noticed that I looked slightly confused about where to go next. She pointed me toward the exit and explained where I could find taxis and buses. Her kindness surprised me. I thanked her several times and she smiled warmly. That small moment made me realize something important. Even in a place where everything feels unfamiliar, there are always people who are willing to help. I pushed my suitcase forward and took my first real steps into the bustling heart of America. The automatic doors opened in front of me, and the cold air touched my face. I looked around, amazed that I was finally standing in a completely different world. Outside the airport, everything felt alive. Cars passed quickly, horns honked softly, and people rushed to different destinations. I took a taxi to my hotel, and the driver welcomed me with a friendly, "How are you today?" His accent sounded different from the English I learned in school, but I understood him easily. As we drove, I looked through the window like a child seeing the world for the first time. Tall buildings touched the sky, bright signs lit up the streets, and people of every background walked along the sidewalks. The atmosphere felt energetic and full of possibility. The driver told me about the city, places to visit, foods to try, and areas that were popular with tourists. I listened carefully, repeating some words in my mind to practice my English. Even though the ride was short, it felt like a small tour, an introduction to a country I had admired from afar for so long. When we reached the hotel, I thanked him and stepped out into the cool air with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. The hotel lobby was bright and welcoming. Soft music played in the background, and people stood in line at the reception desk. When it was my turn, I greeted the receptionist with a polite smile and said, "Hello, I have a reservation." She checked her computer and then handed me a key card. "Your room is on the 4th floor," she said clearly. I thanked her and took the elevator up. When I entered my room, I felt a deep sense of relief. After such a long journey, it felt amazing to lie down on the soft bed. I looked around the room, clean sheets, warm lights, and a large window with a view of the city. I opened the curtains and watched cars move like tiny ants below. I whispered to myself, "You made it." The moment filled me with gratitude. I took a deep breath, letting the reality of everything settle into my mind. I was far from home, but in that quiet hotel room I felt safe, peaceful, and ready for whatever came next. After resting for a while, I decided to walk around the neighborhood near the hotel. I wanted to see America with my own eyes, not just through a window. The sidewalks were wide, and the buildings looked modern and tall. I passed small restaurants, convenience stores, cafes, and souvenir shops. The smell of food filled the air: pizza, fried chicken, fresh bread, and even coffee from machines on the street corners. People greeted each other with quick smiles or friendly nods. I listened to the English spoken around me. It was fast, lively, and full of expressions that I had never heard before. Sometimes I understood everything, other times I caught only a few words. But instead of feeling discouraged, I felt motivated. Every sound, every conversation, every sign was a chance to learn. I walked slowly, taking in the colors, the energy, and the rhythm of life in America. I knew that this was just the beginning of my adventure. As the sun began to set, the city lights started to glow brightly. The streets became even more alive. People were laughing, talking, and enjoying the cool evening breeze. I stopped at a small cafe, ordered a cup of hot chocolate. The cashier spoke quickly, but I managed to reply confidently. I sat near the window and watched the street outside. Families walked together, couples held hands, and friends laughed while taking pictures. I felt a warm sense of belonging, even though I was thousands of miles away from home. The world felt big, but somehow also connected. I wrote in my travel journal about everything I experienced that day: the flight, the airport, the people, the city. As I wrote, I felt grateful for every moment. Traveling, I realized, teaches you not only about other places, but also about yourself. It opens your eyes, stretches your mind, and fills your heart with stories you can carry for a lifetime. The next morning, I woke up early. My body was still adjusting to the time difference, but I felt refreshed and ready to explore more. I decided to visit a famous park that many people talked about. When I arrived, I was amazed by how peaceful it felt. Tall trees swayed gently in the wind, birds sang softly from the branches, and people jogged or walked their dogs. I sat on a bench and let the cool air touch my face. I listened to the conversations around me. Some people spoke loudly and happily, while others talked quietly about their day. The English sounded natural, everyday, and friendly. I felt that my listening skills were already improving just by being surrounded by conversations. I practiced repeating sentences quietly to myself, almost like a whisper. The more I listened, the more confident I became. This trip was not only teaching me about America, it was teaching me how to hear, understand, and feel a language in a living environment. Later that day, I visited a small local museum. The entrance was quiet, and the atmosphere felt calm and inviting. Inside, the walls were filled with paintings, photographs, and historical objects. I read the descriptions carefully, taking my time with each sentence. Many of the words were familiar, but some were new. Instead of feeling discouraged, I took my notebook out and wrote the new vocabulary down. I believed that learning should be patient, steady, and gentle. A museum staff member noticed me writing and asked kindly, "Are you learning English?" I smiled and nodded. She encouraged me, saying that visiting museums, parks, and public places was one of the best ways to improve language skills. Her words gave me courage. I continued exploring the museum slowly, enjoying the art and continuing to practice reading English in a natural way. It felt like my mind was expanding with every moment. In the evening, I decided to visit a grocery store to buy some snacks. Although it might sound simple, it was actually a great chance to learn practical English. I walked through the aisles reading labels, comparing prices, and observing how people interacted with each other. When I reached the counter, the cashier greeted me with a friendly, "How's your day going?" The speed of her speech surprised me a little, but I answered, "It's going well, thank you." She smiled and asked if I needed a bag. I said yes, and she handed me one while wishing me a wonderful evening. It was a short exchange, but it made me feel proud. These small interactions were helping me grow more confident in speaking English. Even simple activities like shopping could become useful learning opportunities. I realized that learning a language was not just about studying grammar, it was about living the language. As the days passed, I grew more comfortable with the city. I learned how to use the bus and subway. I learned how to ask for directions. I learned how to order food without feeling nervous. Most importantly, I learned how to listen. Every day brought new sounds, new expressions, and new opportunities to practice English in real situations. I met people from different cultures, some from Asia, others from Africa, Europe, and Latin America. America truly felt like a place where the world came together. And with each conversation, I learned something new. I discovered that speaking English wasn't about being perfect. It was about communicating, connecting, and expressing yourself with confidence. Every small mistake became a stepping stone toward improvement. Every new word became a tool for building a stronger voice. My favorite experience happened near the end of my trip. I visited a large waterfront area where the sunlight reflected beautifully on the water. People sat on benches, children fed the birds, and musicians played soft melodies with guitars and violins. I sat quietly, enjoying the peace of the moment. A man beside me began a conversation. He asked where I was from and how I was enjoying America. We talked for several minutes, and for the first time, I felt completely comfortable speaking English. I didn't worry about grammar or pronunciation. I simply expressed myself naturally. The man listened kindly and encouraged me, saying that my English was improving very well. That moment made me realize how far I had come. From nervous airport conversations to confident conversations with strangers, I had grown in courage, skill, and understanding. On the last day of my trip, I stood by my hotel window and looked out at the city one final time. The buildings, the lights, the people, the sounds, all of it had become a part of my story. I felt grateful for every experience, every challenge, and every lesson. This journey taught me that traveling is not just about seeing new places, it is about seeing yourself in a new way. I learned that English is not something you only study. It is something you live, feel, and experience in real life. As I packed my suitcase to return home, I realized that I was no longer the same person who nervously entered the airport on the first day. I had grown more confident, more open, and more connected to the world. My very first trip to America was not only a journey across countries, but a journey into a new chapter of my life, one filled with learning, courage, and unforgettable memories. Thank you for listening to this English practice story, my very first trip to America. I hope the journey helped you relax, learn new words, and feel more confident in understanding English. Stories are one of the best ways to improve your listening skills because they let you hear English in real situations, not just in textbooks. Through this story, you followed the experience of traveling, meeting new people, learning from small challenges, and growing step by step. Remember, learning a language takes time, patience, and practice. Every new word you learn, every sentence you understand, and every story you listen to brings you closer to fluency. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep believing in your progress. Thank you for learning with me today, and I hope to share another story with you very soon.